And welcome back to the PWBA YouTube channel. It's the On the Road podcast. It is week 3 of the PWBA season, 2025 10th anniversary season, and we are live from Yorktown Lanes, Parma Heights, Ohio. It's the summer series. But before we get to the summer series, let's go back 1 week because sitting here is the 2025 USBC Queens champion, none other than Josie Barnes. Jose, first of all, thank you for joining us. How you doing?
I'm great.
But you should be.
Feel good.
I certainly hope so. There's no tiara. She took the week off from wearing the tiara. But let's start right there. Obviously, it's been a few days now. Some hours have passed. You've had a little bit of time to just hopefully allow it to truly sink in. How have the moments and the hours, the days been since your win, Sterling defeating Jane on TV for this Queen's title?
Yeah, I think it's still hard to believe in some ways. I was talking to some people back home, and, as a little girl growing up, I watched the Women Bowl on TV all the time. And at that time, when you were competing, it was like, okay, I want to grow up and I want to win the US Open, or I want to grow up and I want to win the Queens. And now somehow I get to say that I've done both of those things. So it really does feel like a dream come true.
Yeah, you put together the resume now that obviously, and you just kind of mentioned it, like most players, most young girls, but even now some adults who haven't quite achieved those things but still want to, you're Hall of Fame eligible now.
Yeah.
And so I know your history and how much, players of yesteryear certainly mean to you. When you hear the words Hall of Fame eligible, what pops into your mind at that point?
Yeah, I think it doesn't seem like it's right. I still pinch myself when I have, daily text conversations with Carolyn, and, I catch up with Kim on the phone regularly, and it's still hard for me to believe that I'm like friends with them. So to also be in like potential like Hall of Fame type category with them just doesn't compute in my head. But I think young Josie would be so proud of, not just the things that I've achieved, but the commitment to the process of getting there, because, one of the things I wrote about in my Facebook post was like, yes, current Josie was the one that collected the trophy, but I can list all the younger Josies that made it possible to get to that point.
The ability to just kind of comprehend all the things that went through your journey as a young player, starting at Vandalia Bowl, your parents, your sister, all involved in this. When you started out, how did you begin? Kind of why did you begin to the story of bowling for you?
Yeah, I actually, so my parents own the bowling center, which you know very well. For those that don't know,
I've been there once.
Emil's been there a couple of times. He used to come out in his Lindenwood days. But, I started as a young kid just because I was out there so much. But I didn't really take it super serious until I was probably in middle school. And at that point, I didn't even really like it because I was around it so much that it was like, oh, God, I got to be at the bowling alley again. Like, this stinks. But, my parents are of honest means, and they worked really hard. And, mom and dad just sat me down and they're like, listen, you don't have to love bowling, but you're pretty good at it. And it can pay for college. So you can make one of two decisions. You can either practice and become really good at this and get college paid for, or you can not and get a big girl job and pay for your own college. And so it was at that point that I decided it was worth my while to invest some time in bowling. And then, I've always been a competitive person. So once I got those juices flowing and realized that not only am I pretty good at it, but it's a lot of fun to compete, it was just kind of off to the races from there.
I know the family element, obviously very important for you. And you talked about Jessica being there for your her first time seeing you win in person. After you took a few hours, a couple days, did you guys share a different moment, or kind of relive or take us through what it was like just, when she got to see you and you locked eyes, and I'm sure she was crying.
Yeah. It was interesting because, she's always been a very important piece of my journey. You watched us grow up. It wasn't always the friendliest. We were always kind of there.
Rivalry.
Yeah, it was there. There was always some battling back and forth, and being the older sister, I never wanted to lose, right? And she was also very good. So there was some back and forth there. And I do truly think that I've gotten to where I am because she was always there kind of pushing me along the way. And she's competed out here some in the last few years. But for whatever reason, it didn't really match up that the ones that she was competing in were also ones that I had the opportunity to win. So it was really cool to have her there and, kind of keep the calm and, I guess normalcy of those last like 36 hours or so of that event. And I was actually keeping it together really good until she came over for a picture and I realized that she had been crying for a while. And that's when like the emotions really, really hit.
What would Mama Lisa say
Whew.
after this win, or even
Yeah. Well, she would have been a nervous wreck during the TV show. It was not uncommon for her to spend some time in the bathroom while I was competing in a final match. So I'm sure that's where she would have spent a good chunk of that time. But, there would be some woohoos and some hands up in the background. She definitely would have been super excited.
Did you hear anything from your current players at Vanderbilt?
Yeah. I had some, they all text me at different points. I had some of my incoming kids reach out to me too. I was telling John that I think two of my favorite texts came from our players. Caitlin Abaganya, who's incoming, sent me a really sweet message because I actually wore her jersey on the TV show. She created it. I love it. I think it's cute. And so it was the one that I wore and she's like, oh my God, coach, I'm crying. Like, I'm so excited. So that was really sweet. And then Sapphire sent me, she was a freshman this year, sent me a funny text. She's such a little weirdo. She has this thing where when she gets overstimulated, she'll like nibble on you, like she'll come up and like bite your shoulder. And she sent me a text that was like, Josie, I'm sending you the biggest congratulations bite ever. Like, you are so weird and I love everything about it.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, so they all reached out to me in some form or fashion.
When you think about where we are currently, just Yorktown,
Yeah.
new event, right? Different week, but you've also had success here.
Yeah.
Right. You've won a title. You beat Sherry Tan, threw all three in the 10th, and have to force her to throw three in the 10th to win.
Yeah.
And then she stones a 9-pin. But I know familiar surroundings generally breed good vibes. Did you feel that when you walked in here?
Yeah. I think for me, I feel comfortable, right? You never know what the week's going to throw at you, but it always feels good when you can match up in a place. It's not, this isn't a center that works against the things that I like to do naturally. So that's exciting. And it's also just fun because it brings back great memories. This is where I was pregnant with Lisa Ruth. I hadn't told anybody yet, but so it felt like her first step into bowling, was that's why she loves to hear the pins crash now, I guess.
Nice.
But yeah, it just brings back a lot of, warm, happy memories.
Now, is that how Lisa Ruth, is that where she got her competitiveness from too?
Yeah, I would think between, me and her father, she really didn't stand a chance. So, I think her competitiveness is just payback for all of the outrageousness that I was, growing up in high school and college, Josie, because I don't think, that, to me, that's one of the places that I've evolved over time, is, little psycho Josie in 2004 to now, like, we're not the same humans. Still equally as competitive.
A little calmer.
Yeah, we just handle things a little differently now.
Growth.
Yes.
That's what we call growth in the world. Speaking of growth, these last couple of seasons, I think, have been very good for you, certainly on the lanes.
Yeah.
But I know they haven't gone without pain, specifically in your right wrist.
Yeah.
So where and how do you manage the pain? Is it a significant injury? How do you have to handle your week to week?
Yeah. So the hard part is I went and saw a hand specialist at the end of last season. We have one connected with our athletic department. So I'm super lucky when it comes to that. And, we did the MRIs and the scans. And ultimately what it amounts to is it's really just an injury of overuse, which is normal for competitive bowlers of my age. And so there's not really a fix other than just, I like to think so. There's really not a fix other than just being smart and, listening to my body and knowing when to rest. Sometimes that can be hard out here. Like we just spent a week bowling. Now we're here bowling another week. We've got the US Open coming up. But I really try to manage my shots in practice. Like today, I tried to be very focused for an hour and then cut it after the hour because I know how many shots could potentially come throughout the week. So just really trying to be smart about that. At the end of last season, I took about 4 months off just to give it some time to heal. And I think that was helpful in a lot of ways. Number one, the wrist had a break. It also allowed me to reevaluate other things that I could be doing to help my bowling. I already had a trainer who I had been working with for a little while, Josh, back home. But we refocused. I sat down with him, said, these are my goals. This is what I think is going to help, push me, like make sure that this is, what I'm committed to. And I think that's really helped to start this season is just physically everything but my wrist being in better shape. And I think that helps mentally. I'm a big believer in that, there are a lot of things outside of bowling that can help you mentally prepare and, pushing yourself to do things you haven't done before. It just makes you that much stronger.
Would you say you're in the best physical shape that you've been in, certainly before the tour?
Yeah, I do. I always worked out in college. We had a trainer, but I didn't necessarily take it. I mean, I took it serious, but it's just different, right? As you get older, you understand that your body can't just do what you want it to do, right? Your brain can tell it to do all kinds of things, but if it's not prepared, it's just not going to happen. So, I feel like I could do more now than I probably ever could.
Well, you always say, there's a saying that you use in regards to doing hard things.
Mm-hmm.
What is that saying? And then did you apply it when you started to have the wrist kind of situation and thinking about what's the new way to train now?
Yeah, I say we can do hard things, or I can do hard things. Just because it's hard doesn't mean that it's impossible, right? It's just going to take a little mental fortitude and knowing that it's okay to be uncomfortable, right? And finding that line of what's just discomfort and what's actually something that can hurt me and, make things more difficult down the road. And I think sometimes we start thinking uncomfortable is bad, like we need to cut it. And it's like, no, I can push through this, right? I can get past that.
I want to circle back real quick to the Queens.
Mm-hmm.
Was there a match prior to TV that stood out at any point? And obviously you're the only undefeated player, so you made your way. But every now and then there's a match that could go either way.
Mm-hmm.
Which was there a match, and which one was it for you, if so?
Yeah, I think there were 2 matches that I really tried to make sure I was, mentally staying focused the entire time. I thought when I bowled against Natasha, she had been bowling well all week, and she was maybe the only person that I saw that was a higher seed than me, but I knew she was going to strike. And so I knew I wanted to come out of the gate strong because most of my pins had been coming early in a match. And then as my ball reaction went away, I just kind of, stayed clean because I had enough of a lead. So her match to me was really important. And we both came out really strong in that match. I think we both threw the front 5 or 6. And then, so staying really diligent in that match was important to me. The other match was Alicia, because I knew that she would probably be a little left of me throwing some surface. And so my moves weren't going to be exactly the same as they had been in the matches before. And that proved to be true. I had built enough of a lead, but then going into that last game, it got a lot closer than I think even the score at the end looked like, because that left lane gave us both fits, right? She was throwing 2 different balls on it was not kind. And I think my last 2 frames prior to the 10th, the 6th and the 8th, I split both times on that lane, and I made a ball change in the 10th. And I needed to stay clean in that 10th frame. And so that one, to me, once I got through that, I was like, okay, we're gravy from here. Like, I can do this. I'm seeing it right.
Right. Was that the match where there was some thought of kind of outside the box thinking and threw a different bowling ball that maybe wasn't even on the radar, but you said, I'm not throwing it bad. Let's just try this bowling ball.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so the ball I went to is one I had thrown a couple of times during the week, but it is so clean that it just didn't, especially once you get into the matches, right. It's like, we're not, there aren't 100 balls going down the lane right now. Like, this one doesn't make sense. But, that left lane was just fried in the fronts. And I was like, I gotta find something that gets through it. So whether it's this one or a plastic ball, like, it's gotta get through the fronts on this next one, because if it doesn't, we're gonna big four right. on this one. And so I was like, well, we're just gonna throw it. Like, we're just gonna throw it and see what we're doing.
How did you develop that mentality? Because I know at this level, we talk about players all the time making ball changes in the 10th frame and winning moments and not being afraid to do that.
Yeah.
Where did that mentality come from?
Well, I think coaching has helped that, because I tell the kids all the time, when we're having conversations about switching balls or doing different things, if what we're seeing doesn't align, we need to go with what they're thinking, because being half into something never works out, right? Even if it is truly the ball that would make the most sense, like, if you're not committed to it, you're not gonna throw good. Like, right. It's either gonna be slow, or you're gonna miss in front of you a little bit because you think it's not gonna hook. There are a variety of things that can happen. And so for me, it was like, I knew the two balls that I had just thrown, I wasn't going to be able to make work, because I just did not trust that was gonna happen. So at the end of the day, I either stick with that and split, because it's gonna happen. I'm not committed to this, or I can throw another one, throw it 100% physically, and then whatever the ball does, it does. I mean, that's bowling, right? Like, to me, bowling is 100% educated guesses, right? And so if I'm right 60% of the time, 70, like, I feel pretty darn good about that, right?
That's a pretty good ratio.
Yeah, that feels good.
All right, so I'll get you out of here with this one. You've already started 2025 off about as well as you can start. I think both on the lane, certainly, and off the lanes. Mm-hmm. What were the goals coming into the season, and what are your goals at this point, certainly after adding another major championship? Yeah,
I think for me, we joke about me being young, but I am getting older compared to the field out here, right? So for me, coming into this year, I wanted to feel like I was physically executing well. My body was in a good place, and I just wanted to win one. It had been a while since I had been in the winner's circle, had made a few shows, and it just, for whatever reason, didn't work out the right way. I feel like I'm physically throwing it better than I've thrown it. And the last couple of years, that time off allowed me to, get my wrist in a position that I felt like my ball roll has gotten better. I didn't think it would happen that quickly out of the gate. I felt like there would be some transition time, and I'm sure there still will be. I got hot. Yeah, it's very humbling. Yes, very humbling. But it feels good to know that the work is, moving things in the right direction. And so, honestly, like, I've not had a 2-win season, so wasn't something I had considered, because you have to have one before you have two. But outside of 2019, this is the first time that I've, had the runway that I've had. Right. So is it possible? I don't know. But, I tell my kids, you have to shoot for the stars, right? Like, goals are supposed to be lofty and hefty. And I think that would be pretty cool. That would be excellent. Josie, thank you for joining us today on the On the Road podcast. And of course, thank all of you for watching the PWBA YouTube channel. Don't forget, this week, all week long, Summer Classic Series from Yorktown Lanes, the PWBA, again, Cleveland Summer Series. You can watch that all this week on Bowl TV, and all season. It's the 10th anniversary season. Watch it all season long on Bowl TV. For Josie Barnes, Curtis Von Kruger, and Caleb Smiley, my name is Emil Williams Jr. We will see you next time right here on the On the Road podcast on the PWBA YouTube channel.